So that's one to bird dog on. If you can follow up with Amanda and I on that, because I'm not familiar with that, Roger, and that would seem to be an urgent thing to kind of understand where we're at as we go through the budget process the next couple of weeks, just to be supportive of that.
Thank you very much.
That'd be tremendous. Let's see. Any other, just before we're done, I mean, any other final observations? You're nodding your head as you listen to some of this. Just any other comments, things you'd like to say? I thank you very much for being here and sharing any and all. Are we good?
I think we covered it.
Very good. Karina, thank you very much. Andrew, Roger, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your being here.
Would you like me to leave these?
Excellent. I think that the 2008 one, I have that. You're welcome to leave it, but we do have it for our members. We'll take that. Roger, thank you. No, thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thank you for being here. So anyone, at this time, I just want to open it. Anyone who wants to come up and just public comment on any facet of today's proceeding, just come right up.
I will jump right in. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Excuse me, Leslie Heimog, the Executive Director of the Children's Law Center of California, and we represent all of the children involved in the child welfare system in both Los Angeles and Sacramento counties. So we have a somewhat unique perspective in that we represent children in the largest county in the state, where we have 30,000 clients, and then in Sacramento, where we have just under 3,000 clients. And I want to first respond to your comment just a moment ago about bird dogging the budget issue. It is critical. This is the second year that we've been in the budget. Last year, the money was taken out at the very last minute. We've been talking about a crisis for a long time. I honestly am shocked every day that my lawyers show up for work. They have over 300 clients each in our Los Angeles office. As Roger mentioned, in Ventura, lawyers have 500 clients each, in San Bernardino, 1,000. We can't do our jobs, and it's not really about the lawyers. It's about what our clients deserve and what our clients need. And what we're hearing now from our attorneys, many who have been with us 10 or 12 years, who love this work and they thought it would be their life's work, when they leave, it's not because they can't make enough money, and it's not because the work is hard or the work is challenging. It's because their caseloads are too high and they feel that they are not meeting their responsibilities. And that is a very serious situation for us to be in.
If you're a good lawyer, that just grinds you down. You feel
Exactly.
you're
So we are
achieving your calling.
And everything that was talked about today falls apart when the child doesn't have a voice in the legal process, because that's where the decisions are made. The ultimate decision about everything you looked at today, whether it's funding or relative placement or education, crossover youth, ones who get engaged with the delinquency system, trauma, every decision is ultimately made in the courtroom. And if the child doesn't have an attorney who has the time to look at all of those issues, then things will be left unattended. And the laws that are passed here will be unenforced. There's not adequate accountability when the attorneys don't have reasonable caseloads. So all the great programs that are put into place fall flat when this piece of the system is so severely underfunded. So I would encourage you to, as you said, bird dog that issue. So thank you.
Thank you, Leslie.
Hi, my name is Andrea Combs. You'll have to forgive me. I have met with you before a couple of months ago, and I have met with some of your staff members in regards to, my primary issue is the whole CPS thing. But I do agree, in hearing the attorneys speak on the children not getting adequate representation, I do, it concerns me a bit, because as some of you know, my daughter is in adoptions right now as we speak, and it's over a messy house. So if there's not proper investigations being done, then obviously they're being overworked, and there's a great miscommunication there somewhere. Also, too, the fact that we're having to move children out of county, that's human trafficking. That's a whole new thing we can open up here eventually. And if the attorney's having to do all the work, then obviously the foster parents and the children being placed outside of the home and not with relatives, they're obviously being overpaid. So there's some serious issues that obviously have arisen here today that need to be dealt with. And I just hope I can get my daughter out of adoptions at this point. And she had her nieces, and her nieces were
And
trapped.
I gave you the pictures of the coffee in Citrus Heights.
We're with Operation Expose CPS. We're the ones that are, there's going to be a nationwide protest on June 5th regarding CPS and family law.
And we just want, for you to know, to realize that when the CPS worker comes and knocks on the door, that's the beginning of the end
Yes.
for that family. They don't have any rights. They don't have any standing against the corruption that's in the CPS system. And we need to have it from the bottom level up, looked at.
Family first.
Yeah, and have it reformed, because it's not fair to the family. I had my 2 nieces, great nieces, taken. For what? For lies and corruptions. And they did have a court-appointed attorney who was just corrupt as the judge down there, just as corrupt as the social workers. And there's nothing that I can do as a great aunt to get them back. They went into adoptions as of the 15th of May, and they're gone, because once you go and do the termination hearing, the 366 hearing, it's over for any biological family. And they were in a safe environment. We were, dedicated to adopt them. And instead, some social worker at the lowest level decided, it's just easier for them to keep them down in Riverside County than it is to transfer them and have them come up every month to look at the home. I mean, how fair is that to them? They'll never know their biological family. They'll never know their cousins, their aunts, their uncles, their grandparents. And for what? It doesn't make any sense. And so we need reform. We need somebody up in the higher levels to say, hey, let's look at this. Look at CPS and say, let's look at the social workers. Let's look at the system, and how can we change this? Because we're not the only families. Like we said, with Operation Expose, we hear about it nationwide.
Stop. I mean, it's actually going to be a worldwide event. Australia jumped on board, Canada's on board, the UK's on. I mean, it's happening all over. It's not just here. My mother retired from the state after 30 years. If they're 100% sure I can't have my child, why isn't she with my mom? So the whole AB 423, how's that really going to work if families aren't being given the opportunities to these children first anyway? How's that going to work? If our families are being denied rights to these children. My mom's heartbroken. I have a 21-year-old son who just married his 6th grade sweetheart with a baby on the way. How come he doesn't have my daughter? Why is my daughter's been taken out of Sacramento County? That's human trafficking again, because they can make $50,000 instead of $10,000 by doing this. The social workers have blank checks all day long. They're getting incentives. There's no audit of the system. So these are issues that definitely I feel need to be raised. The attorney's asking for more money and this and that. I can't even I just received 1,000 pages of transcripts from the appellate attorney that was court appointed to me. I have to do my appeal on my own. I've got 3 weeks to do it. I don't know where to start. That's just stealing my child. My child's been stolen from me. There's no reason for me not to have her. I don't have any help. I don't know what I'm going to do. That's the type of stuff that's happening in the state of California. And it needs to
We
stop.
wanted to present it to you and then present it to, whoever who will listen to us, to say this is real. This is what's happening in the community in Sacramento County, in Riverside County, in San Diego County, all throughout California, the U.S. These are real stories from real people. It's not the lawyers that are talking. It's not the judges that are talking. It's us, the public.
Street level, yeah.
And so we need to get our voice heard. So we come to you, we beg you, please help, do something, look at the lower level, do something about the system.
It's all areas. It's not just the foster care system. It's all areas. It's all areas.
And he was saying about the lawyers, when I had my niece for the year, we didn't see the attorney once.
I never saw my daughter.
I never talked to her. I never saw her until I got my attorney from Riverside County and went down there to meet her. That was the first indication that she even had an attorney. And so where's her guidance? Where's her help? And when I did meet her, like I say, she was just as corrupt as the judge that took her.
How much money were you at?
Oh, just $10,000.
Only to be told she had no rights because she's not
We're not,
directly.
we're not the second, we're the third generation out. So I hope you take this to somebody and we can look at the system.
And like I said, I'd be at every hearing, and I've been at every hearing.
Oh, yeah, we'll be
I
back.
told you I wasn't
Yeah.
going anywhere, so here I am.
That's good.
Thank you.
And hopefully you can attend the protest on the 5th and
Yeah.
see the mass
For
people.
yourself, there's going to be a lot of people there at Power Inn at the family courthouse. We're not going anywhere. It's something that there's a website being designed right now. We're banging on doors. We're not going anywhere. This is going to be consistently done over time. We're not going
Over
anywhere.
years.
We want our children back. We want to know where our children are. We want to know they're safe. As I showed you at Starbucks in Citrus Heights a couple months ago, the bruises on my daughter that she received while in foster care, and because I asked why a police report wasn't made, all of a sudden my daughter's in adoptions. It doesn't matter. I've got every single conversation between me and the social worker recorded. I can prove that I didn't do anything wrong and that they did. I can prove it all day long, but my daughter's still in adoptions. So it's the whole system all the way around. And as you being a grandfather who's adopted your own grandchildren, can you imagine not knowing where those grandchildren are? Could you imagine not having that opportunity to do that? My mother is living that right now. My mother would threaten to kick me out of the house when I turned 18 if I didn't go vote. Because she's just so in love with our state and our policies. And now it's all been flipped on her. 30 years with the state. My mother retired after 30 years with the state, and she can't even have her own grandchild. There's something seriously wrong with that picture.
So,
Thank you for having us.
Yep.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah. And for sitting through the program. Thank you very
Oh,
much.
yeah,
Oh, definitely.
it's a learning experience for us.
Yeah.
Because we're just in the baby steps of this. So
Yeah.
We'll learn a lot about it. Thank
I'm going to
you.
be right there banging on doors. I'm not going anywhere, like I said. So
It's a
thank you.
grassroots movement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm Gail Johnson Vaughn with Families Now, and I think our people who just testified speak to the complexity of our whole system and also to the incredible passion that parents have as they advocate for their children. Families Now, our mission is to open the doors to permanent families for children who are in foster care. We take a look at where the barriers are that end up kids being stuck in the system. And everything that we've heard today has, over and over again, we hear the word stability. Placement stability, school stability, stability of relationships, stability with relationships with siblings, with birth parents, all of that over and over again. And what we see happening in the system is so many incredible improvements with all of the things that Gordon was saying and everybody, all these things, these are right things to happen. But so many of the kids end up falling through the cracks. When I listened to Christina speak and when I listened to Laura and Karina, I went, why did those kids leave the system without a family? Each of them so articulate, so intelligent, and still they left without a family. And what happens in our system is that there is a point at which our kids, the system decides for some reason that they're not, nobody will want them. We have what we call in this, what our organization calls barrier beliefs. The thing that keeps these kids in care is that there's a belief that no one would want them or that they wouldn't want families. That baby with multiple sclerosis that was deemed unadoptable, and obviously not. So what I want to speak to is where stability comes from. Stability comes from belonging, and the core of belonging comes from family. That's where we learn how to belong, and that's how we learn to allow people to belong to us. And in California, we have led the nation in the development of specialized permanency services for our young people. Right here in Sacramento, we had a federal grant in 2003 to 2008. It was called Destination Family, to demonstrate that we could find permanent families for older kids and teens in foster care. 157 youth, aged 11 to 18, were referred into that program during that period, and 86% of them got permanent families. We saw kids from level 14, highest level of care, go into adoptive homes. Often those children are not considered because we are told over and over again that they're too unstable to be in a permanent family. But stability comes from families. So we actually are sponsoring this year AB 519 with Kevin McCarty, who couldn't be here today. to take a look at creating a definition in our statute of child-centered specialized permanency services. You may be aware of the new federal law, Public Law 113183, that happened in the fall. It's the Preventing Sex Trafficking and Strengthening Families Act. There's a portion in there that eliminates the placement of children under the age 16 in long-term foster care. The euphemism for it now, because we no longer say that, because that's unacceptable, is another planned permanent living arrangement, or euphemize it more, APLA. So you can't place a child under 16 into APLA. Our legislation brings California into compliance with that, but even more so in California, in order for that child to become an APLA child, and right now at any age, they have to be deemed unadoptable or having no one willing to take legal guardianship. But they can, without any effort, a worker can decide, well, who would take this child? Without any sort of robust services to determine, they can be placed into APLA. So our legislation would say that in order to be deemed unadoptable, not a proper subject for adoption, unlikely to be adopted, all of those phrases, that they would have to have these child-centered specialized permanency services as we've defined them. Now, you've probably heard a lot about family finding and engagement as an important permanency issue, and that is very, very important, but it's only a piece. The biggest piece that keeps our young people from achieving permanent families is the trauma that they carry from their separation and loss. So our definition of specialized permanency services addresses services that address the child's trauma, separation, and loss, and the mental health services needed to really ameliorate the impairments to significant areas of life functioning that prevent them from achieving a permanent family. So we're really hoping that you'll take a look at that legislation and that we have a chance to talk. We've made it a 2-year bill because it's complex and we want to make sure that everyone is involved in it. But the question always comes up, how are you going to pay for these services?
2-year bill in the policy committee?
Yes.
Human services?
Yes. Yes. So how are you going to pay for it? Well, part of what we did during the continuation of the Destination Family Program and also the 5 older youth adoption programs that were funded by the state under the Migden bill in 2007. We tracked what it cost those kids, those services, and we tracked how much money was saved by moving them from costly foster care into well-subsidized permanent families. And the savings is so profound that they more than pay for the services. So it's not a question of, is there enough money to do it? There's a question of, is there enough money to not do it? Because we lose so much money when we keep those kids in care, not just during the years when they're part of the foster care system, but as they go on out to cost us a credible amount of money in second-generation dependency, in incarceration, in homeless services, and all of the rest of that. So I'm a loud voice for permanency for children. And I want you to know, and I want you to carry deeply in your heart and your brain that we know how to find permanency for these children, and it actually doesn't cost us anything to do it. And I want you to be a champion for that with me.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Chair Cooley. My name is Melissa San Miguel, and I am with Foster Ed, an initiative of the National Center for Youth Law. We work to improve the education outcomes of children in foster care via policy and programs work that we do. We currently have various pilot programs in various counties across California.
You are based where?
We're based in Oakland. In addition, we also have programs that we've started in Arizona, Indiana, and now branching into New Mexico. We currently have a pilot in Santa Cruz County. We're launching in Alameda County, Santa Clara County, as well as LA County, and doing a lot of that systems collaboration work that you've heard earlier from Mr. Jackson from the State Department of Education is so vital in having the local agencies work together. And so we work with the County Office of Education and child welfare agencies to do a lot of that connecting that they want to do and just need some help doing to be able to support students in foster care. And I just wanted to underscore one of the key issues that was brought up in the education portion of this hearing, which is the fact that, you know, our our system treats students who are placed in family and relative care differently than students who are in institutional settings, and that has real impact for our students in California, considering how much of child welfare has moved to placing children in what is better, which is relative settings. And that impact has been borne out a lot by what's happening currently in the LCFF implementation, where it's really come to the head that the fact that, as Mr. Jackson and Ms. Dunn mentioned earlier, that the foster youth services program is so limited in terms of the students that they're able to provide education services for, mainly children who are in group homes, and that the kids who are locked out of those services are children who are in the family and relative care settings, and that's about 2/3 of the children who are under LCFF considered foster youth, and that's about 40,000 kids that can access those services. So really, we're very grateful that the Assembly has included in their Prop 98 budget, proposed budget, and it's moved on to conference now, is the additional $30 million to the foster youth services program to be able to provide that alignment, and so that all foster youth can access these services, so that there isn't a difference because of whatever type of placement that you may be in, that you're suddenly not able to have education services and supports that are really critical, as you heard from the young people earlier today, that it matters when someone is helping to coordinate, and it really has terrible consequences when someone isn't there to be that advocate. We're also proud to be the sponsors for Assemblymember Weber's Bill AB 854, which does that alignment, but goes further in terms of helping to update the program itself in this LCFF context. So that way it emphasizes more that collaboration and systems building that some of the counties are doing, but that they'd want to do it even more and to a greater degree, considering how many children are currently not able to access the services that they provide at the moment. And so we're pleased to know that that's moving forward, and that was released off suspense today. And it really couldn't be timelier, so we commissioned a report with SRI International that was released earlier this spring that talked about, so the researchers went out and looked at the LCAPs and spoke with various county offices of education and school districts to understand how their year one of planning has been like for foster youth. And so we know it's early, but their results have really shown us the importance of the COE as well as the foster youth services program, because one thing that they've heard from districts was that this was the first time that they've had to systematically plan for foster youth, which is great.
So looking at the first year under LCFF, just taking stock of what they're encountering, how's it going?
Districts really struggled. They didn't know what programs, policies, and laws were out there that were meant to support students in foster care, and they didn't really include anything in their LCAPs. They just didn't know. And for the districts that did have more robust LCAPs, they often had stronger relationships with their COE FYS program because that's the local expert. And so what we heard from also many county foster youth services coordinators, that's the person that's at the COE that runs this program, was that as this was happening, they were outreaching to their school districts to let them know, hey, we're here as a resource. And so for those districts that, were participating in that, it went a lot smoother in terms of figuring out how do we actually plan and budget and, just this whole programming, right, for foster youth. But for many districts, there's still such a ramp up in terms of their knowledge, in terms of knowing what they can do, what's out there.
Is something being done to kind of take those insights, understanding all the different school districts? Some are seeing more opportunity and things to plan for and facets of the foster youth equation than others. Is there some forum where the collective understanding is being increased? It sounds like the SRI study at least starts to raise that as an issue.
Yeah.
But how's the knowledge gap for school districts being addressed? Is there some setting where that's happening?
Well, those efforts could be really strengthened if the increase it goes through, both with the Senate and the governor, because now you'll be able to have, because one of the challenges is the foster youth services program has a much smaller population. So when the districts come and say, oh, okay, here are the foster youth that are my understanding, because they're receiving the kick out from CalPADS about who are their students in care, they have different lists. And so that's made it even more difficult for them to coordinate, because the districts are, believe that foster youth services person is rightly the expert, and they don't know as much, and they're like, okay, we should be serving your youth. So there's even the promise of LCFF is being difficult to be realized at the district level because of this confusion. So by being able to augment the resources, all the systems will be talking about the same kids and
So the
can get on the
budget
same
is
page.
key.
Yes, the budget is key, as well as at the State Department of Education, they have a foster youth services coordinators that does a lot of the work that Mr. Jackson has been talking about the convenings. Regionally, locally, they're organized by like the central region, the northern region, the southern region, that they kind of have communities of practice, and that's what the bill as well, AB 854, supports.
Very good. Okay.
So, and we're hopeful, at least through the CCEE, that there will be some more integration with work that the SBE is doing in terms of helping to provide resources as well.
Okay.
So,
Very good.
thank you.
All right, forward. Greetings.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. Kevin Baker for the American Civil Liberties Union. The hour is late. It's been a very powerful and eloquent hearing. As you heard, we released a report this morning documenting the very crushing and impossible dependency caseloads. I just wanted to thank you for the hearing today. I know one of your key takeaways is going to be to focus on the budget item that is now under consideration for the $33 million in augmented funding. We think that's very critical and look forward to working with you on that.
Yeah. And in terms of, is there some regular place we can turn to get measurements on this dependency court?
I'm going to track down an answer to that question for you. I don't believe the numbers are in dispute, but we should be very clear about what the source of those numbers are.
Yeah, I was more, it's funny, in my career I've worked with the annual reports to the Judicial Council, which sort of relate to judicial caseload, and they break out what types of actions. So I know that somebody maintains an annual number, and you can kind of get a histogram. You can see how the numbers relate year to year. And given the importance to foster kids of the dependency court, I'm just wondering, is there some place we can turn for, unimpeachable source of data as a metric to drive the conversation? So if you have ideas on that, Kevin, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely will, and I'll follow up with your office.
Yeah, this is very timely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah. And anyone else wish to speak? Well, I want to thank you all for being here on this Thursday afternoon. I just thank you for the opportunity to kind of grow my understanding of it. I've had colleagues who got a flavor of it early on. People are sort of all over the map. There's important work being done in the budget. I appreciate the bringing forward the individual measures. I was just rushing here from being with Kevin McCarty earlier today. So, I think this is an area where my interest is sort of looking at how over the course of the next several years we start looking at how the system works. The great thing happening at this moment is you have the legislature transitioning to longer-term members. And we've had 20 years of having members who had only 6 years to serve in the assembly, and in that system, most came in or were gone in 4. The voters have changed that. So I think on a lot of fronts, I think we are now in an era where here in the legislature, lawmakers are going to own a little more. What is the policy driving the state? Is it the right policy? Just because it's been on the books, is it serving us well? What's the best way to tackle these issues? And it'll take rethinking. And I think we've talked a lot today about a collaboration, but there's a sort of collaboration that happens where people who are subject matter experts, personally familiar with the application of the law and policy in the state, sort of bring their expertise here to Sacramento so my colleagues and I in the legislature can sort of take some cues from the people who are sort of on the front lines of policy. And we heard from Bob, we heard from Priscilla, we heard from lawyers, we've heard from researchers, we've heard from women who've grown up in the system, today it was young ladies. And I think this is all sort of helps us take stock of where we are and where we need to go. And as I stated at the beginning, I'm not here because I consider myself an expert in the subject matter. I'm here because I have a personal interest in figuring out how to partner with people who are on the front lines to figure out where's the growing edge where we can improve the system, where we can make an advance, where we can focus a conversation and move the public policy in a direction that's ultimately better for kids in our state and those that love those kids and are trying to support them and get rid of barriers. So I just want to thank you all for your time here today with me and your patience with me when I had to step away briefly. I apologize for that. But I just thank you all for your commitment and devotion and support. Thank you very much. This hearing is adjourned.